As it's 1:30 on March 9, 2026, I will call this meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Hurt,
Yes.
Hildred,
Here.
Bentley,
Yes.
Hamaji.
Here. Are there any suggested changes to the minutes from the February 9 meeting? There being none, we'll submit them as received. We opened this meeting with the member forum. Do we have any people who would like to speak as members forum?
Yes. For our members forum today, members are welcome to speak during this designated member forum at Rossmore Walnut Creek, RWC, board and committee meetings, either in person or via Zoom. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes and must clearly state their full name and Rossmore address before beginning. If speaking on behalf of another member, signed consent form is required. To speak, members must submit a member forum slip prior to the start of the forum. Instructions and slips were available at the meeting entrance of the RWC board office and online. Please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded by attending and participating, including during the open forum. Attendees agree to and release RWC from all liability for their voice and/or likeness being recorded and broadcast for any lawful purposes without compensation. First, I'd like to call Roxanne Starlings. If you please go to the end of the table and speak loud, state your name and your Rossmore address so that we can hear you clearly. Thank you, Roxanne. You have 2 minutes.
Roxanne Stallings, 3478 Rossmore Parkway, unit number 3, mutual number 3. I am president of the Ballroom Dance Club, and I attend many of the other dance club as a member, and I've also worked in coordinating, helping with their boards and their membership. I hope you will seriously look at the idea of changing the policy from 20% membership of non-resident guests to 20% attendance non-resident guests. Our boards, our dance boards will be severely impaired if you impose a policy like this. You will do a great deal of damage to our dance clubs, and it's very important that we have more impact and more representation than 2 minutes. I'm supposed to be over at the Creekside meeting for the Mutual Treasurers Club right now. And so I had to give that up in order to be here. And I'm also president of the Echo T-Card Club, which brings education to the mutuals here in Rossmore. Philip Prasek is going to be presenting a recommendation, and he has been doing quite a bit of research and writing and communicating with all of our dance club people. We totally support him, and I completely support what his recommendation is going to be. Thank you.
Peter Polson.
Hi, I am Peter Paulson, 2671 Sackman Indian, number 4. I'm also the president of the Fireside Dance Club, and I would like to emphasize how important it is for these dance clubs to have guests, and that it works as a great deal of great advertising for Rossmore. We came here because we met people from Rossmore that invited us here, and so we decided to change our plans and move up here. And just in the last couple of months, we found out that friends that we had invited to a dance here have also changed their plans, and they're now buying a house at Rossmore. So I think it's a very effective way of advertising. And I also think that we shouldn't charge anybody extra to come here, because it's very worthwhile for them to come here. And in addition, I'd like to say that I also support Phil Prasek. Thank you.
Phil Prasek.
Phil Prasek, 2625 Ptarmigan, number 5, president, Sunday Dancers Club, treasurer, Penguin Dance Club, former vice president, Ballroom Dance Club, active attendee in 3 other dance clubs. 3 topics. 1, having clearly defined terms and policies is crucial for understanding. To help with this, I emailed the policy committee on February 19th the starting point definitions for RWC member, RWC guest, club member, and club guest. I also have printed copies with Mary Hurt today for your ease of reference and your consideration. 2, using correct terminology is also crucial for accuracy and understanding. I provided video evidence in my February 19th email of a significant error in the minutes of the January meeting. Yet no action has been taken to amend the minutes for accuracy. This appears at best to be a casual attitude towards accuracy in communications, or at worst be deliberately misleading. 3, working together in partnership for best results. Community services provide services and makes facilities available for club and RWC member use. Clubs, particularly dance clubs, are a major customer. And the policy committee ensures that those things are required to be done in a manner that is fair to the community. Current policy 304.2 addresses the process for approving new rules. It states that rules for use of community facilities shall be directed by member user groups and shall only be subject to review and approval by staff and the RWC board. Staff shall review draft rules and revisions prepared by member user group to ensure compliance with laws, as well as health and safety standards, adherence to budget limitations, and reasonableness and or fairness to the community. Let's operate within the spirit of policy 304.2 to achieve optimal results, or at least meet in the middle. I strongly urge that a representative of the dance clubs be allowed a seat at the policy committee table and a voice in all ongoing discussion about policies that might impact clubs. Thank you.
Les Birdsell. Birdsell.
2 minutes for me is a limit. I just wanted to let you know that this question about non-residents attending have been around for a long, long time. And I was on the board from 2014 to 2020, and it came up again then. And I think the question of non-residents is ridiculous to worry about it. We like to have our friends and relatives come and participate. And as they say, we've been in every dance group there is here, and they would fold if we didn't have it. And Rotary, for example, is in demand, and the residents here love it, but sometimes we have to get non-residents to participate. I wanted to share with you when we opened the fitness center in 2014, the board, some of the board did not want to have any non-residents even show up in Rossmore. We had a battle with that, and that was stopped. We need the non-residents. Our family and friends enjoy what we're doing, and it brings in new residents constantly. The $10 charge was started on my time, and it was because the fitness center was opening. It was the only facility we have that can track somebody coming in and going out. It's the only one we could ever have. Now, why do we have a $10? Well, many of the non-residents or many of the residents had caregivers and friends that would come to the fitness center. And we decided then to satisfy those who do not want to have non-residents to charge them $10 for every time they came with their resident member.
That is the time, 2 minutes.
They had 10 free visits without being charged $10. Now, I don't know what's happened to that.
Thank you. Brad Wait.
Excuse me, Brad Wade, 2416 Tummington Drive, number 1. I'm speaking on behalf of Sustainable Rossmore as I'm the current treasurer. As probably a lot of you know, for the last 7, 8 years, the of Rossmore, among other things, has put on an annual Earth Day event. And we do it primarily for the benefit of the community, not so much for the increase in membership or exposure for our club, because otherwise we wouldn't do it. It takes too much time and effort and money to do that. And so this year, when we went to book it, we decided to put it in Peacock Plaza. and we wanted to get pop-up tents, canopies put up and for tables and put them up. And we're told that, RWC could not do that because we were not a sponsored club. And the question is, why? What do you have to do to get sponsored? And they said, we don't know because there's no policy on it. So guess what you guys get to do? You get to plug that hole by coming up with a policy that allows clubs to understand what they need to do in order to be able to use those facilities. And thank you.
Rose Jackson.
Good afternoon. My name is Rose Jackson. I live at 1683 Ptarmigan Drive, Unit 1B. I'm here to talk about Rossmore supporting different organizations in Rossmore. I'm a member and work at Leftovers, which is a thrift shop on the corner. I work there 2 days a week, and I do the cashier work. In fact, the shop is operated by volunteers. Our primary charitable beneficiaries are the Contra Costa Crisis Center. We also give to the Rossmore Scholarship Fund and the Rossmore Fund. I'm a cashier. I work twice a week. Many of the volunteers that run this shop, and it's all run by volunteers, are from Rossmore. I work on Tuesday afternoon. There are 7 volunteers. 6 of those volunteers are Rossmore residents. And we do what I call recycling. We recycle clothes, we recycle furniture, we recycle household goods, we recycle books. And recycling fits in with the sustainability group. I'm here to recommend that the sustainability group become a Rossmore club that is sponsored by Rossmore. The reason why I'm saying that is because Leftovers is participating in Earth Day by having people model clothes that we have at Rossmore. At the thrift stop. So what better way for Rossmore to get a real good press, not only within the community, most of the donations that are given to the thrift store are from Rossmore residents. We make I work on a Tuesday afternoon. We make at least $2,000 a day. We're open 5 days a week. Recycling, I never thought about clothes being recycled. We recycle them, we charge.
That is time for 2 minutes.
Oh, well. I could have gone on.
Carol Weed.
Hi, my name's Carol Weed, W-E-E-D. I live at 1277 Avenida Sevilla 2A. I also want to urge the policy committee to come up with a policy for how and the criteria by which the RWC board would sponsor events for clubs. Right now, there isn't a policy. Some clubs have that privilege. It's a little bit mysterious to those of us on the outside how that happened and how we were excluded, but that's the case. That's what we deal with now. And it was a surprise to me when as a member of Sustainable Rossmore, to learn that none of the equipment that is out on the plaza every Friday morning from the middle of May to the end of October isn't available to clubs, because not a single table or chair or tripod from inside Fireside can come out onto the plaza. That's the policy. So the equipment's there, staff is available to do it under certain circumstances, but not when a club needs it. So we need a policy to do that. I mentioned Sustainable Rossmore because our Earth Day event, it's actually the 10th year that we're having an Earth Day. It's getting bigger every year. That's why we've moved from Dollar to Fireside in the plaza. And we have 3 other clubs that have been invited and are glad to participate. The Walnut Creek Sustainability Department has asked to and has been accepted as a participant. And as Rose just mentioned, the Leftovers thrift store is going to be participating, as well as 4 out of the 5 workshops, what do I want to call them? Salons, that's not the right word either.
Studios.
Studios, thank you, studios. So please come up with a policy that's transparent and fair and going forward can be
That is
used for.
time, thank you.
Thank you.
Jan Stone.
Hello, I'm Jan Stone, 1138 Sky Crest Drive, number 2. I am co-chair of Sustainable Rossmore's Trash Talk Committee. I'm here to request rules be established for RWC co-sponsored events. And specifically, I suggest 2 criteria. 1, is the event free and open to all residents, even if reservations are required? And 2, does the event provide information that affects all residents? There are a few Rossmore clubs that impact the lives of all Rossmore residents. 3 come to mind: Emergency Preparedness Organization, also known as EPO, Safer Streets, which unfortunately disbanded at the end of 2025, and Sustainable Rossmore through the efforts of our Trash Talk Committee. We can't deny that all residents need information about preparing for emergencies, and all residents have trash, which affects the cost of living at Rossmore. In the case of Trash Talk, we have 2 major events each year where we educate residents about how and why to properly sort their trash. We participate in the RWC produced New Residents Fair and Sustainable Rossmore's Earth Day, which is not sponsored by RWC, but is open to all residents at no charge. At both events, we hand out recycle totes and food scrap pails. We engage residents in conversations about sorting their trash, where to take items that cannot go in enclosures, and the impact these have on their coupon. We collaborate with Recycle Smart, Republic Services, RWC Communications, and RPM personnel to provide accurate and timely information. I believe Rossmore residents greatly benefit from RWC sponsorship by providing Earth Day, the guaranteed location of Peacock Plaza and the Fireside Room, which offers a free repair cafe, as well as supplying equipment specifically.
That is time.
Thank you.
Kathy Johnson.
Hi, I'm Kathy Johnson. I live at 965 Terra, California, number 4. And I just want to say I'm the secretary for the Activities Council for the TGIF Club, for the Italian Club. Gave up being on the bocce board club, but just a little too many boards. Anyway, I want to address the issue of parking and of busing, but everyone else is talking about policies. Dance clubs do need a specific policy for non-residents. We do depend on our growth through the non-residents becoming members, and then our friends and neighbors that we want to have to come to our dances, and fees would be impacting them. The parking needs to be addressed because I love your scope of work for the future, the next 5 to 10 years. It looks like it'll be exciting. But parking needs to be addressed and something put in the plan that's going forward. And I think that the buses need help now. You need a policy for busing that can be agreeable for people. 2-hour call or 1-hour call before dial a ride is sometimes unreasonable. If you're standing at a corner and you're tired and you need to get home, a bus is there, but they can't take you home because you didn't call. It needs to be readdressed. And I don't know what department that would fall under, but definitely you're in charge of everything. So please. Thank you.
Mary England.
I'm Mary England, 1200 Fairlawn Court, number 8, entry 5. And I would like to address the language in procedure P104. The subject is addressing display and protocol for the American flag and California state flag on RWC property. I suggest and agree with the purpose statement, but that I think you can delete the last sentence "and in a manner that is neutral, respectful, and uniformly applied." Given that partisan folks make the decisions, when to fly the flag at half-staff. It's never neutral. I would also say under responsibility, the language that states the general manager or designee shall be responsible for implementing and administering the procedure and ensuring compliance, period, is adequate. It reads basically like you pay your attorney by the word, so it's a little much. Thank you.
Richard McPherson.
Hi, I'm Richard McPherson, 2001 Pineville Drive, and I'm going to be talking about the Earth Day event. So I'd like to explain how my tree classes contribute to the community. I'm a practicing landscape architect, and as some of you may know, I have a column in our newspaper called Seeing Green, where I write about landscape best practices for our community. I also volunteer to teach classes called Seeing Trees, in which I lead walking tours that help residents to understand and appreciate Rossmoor's trees in a new way. These classes are sponsored by the Nature Walkers Club and the Tree Planting and Preservation Committee of Sustainable Rossmoor. Each tour typically draws 65 to 95 participants, and only a small percentage of them are actually club members. So that level of interest tells us something about the interest in trees and the understanding of them and our landscape, which is one of the purposes of Sustainable Rossmoor. Rossmoor's trees are not simply decorative, they are infrastructure. They influence property values and shape the character of our community. When residents better understand trees, they can support informed decisions and become better partners in maintaining sound landscape policy. At Earth Day events, I present one of these tree classes. This is not a private club activity, it's a community educational event. Sustainable Rossmoor's programming consistently focuses on topics that supports Rossmoor's long-term environmental and financial health. For this reason, Earth Day programming should be viewed as providing a Rossmoor-wide
That is
benefit.
time.
Thank you.
Don McGregor.
Good afternoon, Policy Committee. My name is Don McGregor. I'm a resident of Mutual One. I live at Rockledge and Oakmont, 1500 Rockledge, Apartment 2, Entrance N. I'm speaking today to encourage the Policy Committee to adopt a policy by which a Rossmoor club can be awarded Rossmoor Walnut Creek sponsorship. I am so glad that in April of this year, Friends of Tice Creek will again, I am the co-chair of Friends of Tice Creek as a part of Sustainable Rossmoor. I'm so glad that in April, Friends of Tice Creek will again have a table at the Sustainable Rossmoor Earth Day Festival. In starting Friends of Tice Creek, I have been very appreciative of a Sustainable Rossmoor's support for my vision of collaborating with different Rossmoor clubs, such as the Garden Club, the Bird Walkers, and well as hiking, to engage outside of Rossmoor with the Walnut Creek Watershed Council, as well as Walnut Creek's Open Space Foundation, to bring the program of environmental conservation to the beautiful valley we live in connection with the Walnut Creek groups, the Watershed Council and Open Space Foundation, as well as with Rossmoor's clubs. I am so encouraged by the number of people who have come out in the over a year that we have been meeting, the number of Rossmoor residents who have come out, and I appreciate Sustainable Rossmoor's sponsorship. I would like to see that Sustainable Rossmoor receives Rossmoor Walnut Creek sponsorship in order to continue its program, which is proven to be very popular. Thanks very much.
On Zoom, Albion Becknell. I'm allowing you to speak. Please state your name and your Rossmoor address.
You're muted.
They have to unmute on their end. Oh. Albion Becknell, you're unmuted?
I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I am Albion Becknell and I live at 1361 Singingwood Court, Unit 4. I am here to speak against the current Rossmore Club membership policy as it stands today. As a limited income resident, I do not want to pay for non-resident use of Rossmore Walnut Creek Common facilities, nor do I want to see an increase in our coupon regarding these facilities. Additionally, the room reservation system today seems to be strained to the point that groups I am in have to move numerous times in 1 year. Any decrease in the pressure on our common facilities can only have a positive effect on our resources and budget. I realize there are numerous opinions on this subject, so I am suggesting a modification of the current policy. I think we should cap the 20% non-resident allowance per club at a membership of 50 members. That would result in 10 outside members per club. It is also consistent with fitness center policy of issuing 10 guest passes per year per Rossmore resident. I also suggest that to ease the burden on clubs with more than 10 non-resident members, that we allow them to immediately freeze new non-resident members and use attrition to reduce the current non-resident population members to 10. Remember, currently, 20% of 50 is 10 non-residents, 20% of 100 is 20, 20% of 50 is 40 non-residents, and the numbers keep growing. Thank you for your consideration of this request to restrict the non-resident policy. Thank you.
That is our member forum for today.
And I want to thank all of you for being here, for expressing yourself, and I'm glad we have the chance to listen. Thanks for participating. The chair does not have a report, and we can begin our unfinished business with the documents, the discussion of the flag protocols.
Okay, so this is a follow-up to your last couple of meetings where we introduced a procedure related to how the flag is flown here on RWC property. The two primary locations are at the front gate and here at Gateway. During your last meeting, there was several questions that were asked, and I did seek some information further from our legal counsel. Basically, his response to the various questions and concerns was that there really is no hard and fast rule for how RWC needs to display the flags since this is private property. Our past practice has always been to follow the protocol from both the federal and or state. And anytime there is a proclamation, we have flown the flag in accordance. But this has raised some question over the last year. The three questions that were raised at your last meeting, one was simply an edit to the documents under purpose, if we could edit the document by removing the word neutral, and certainly that can be done at your discretion. The second comment that came in was in relation to U.S. Code Title 4, Chapter 1, Section 7, subsection M. I had to drill down for that one. The response again was if the committee wanted to make that section part of the actual procedure, that could be done as well. Can RWC simply follow proclamations from the governor instead of from the federal? And that also can be done since this again is private property, it's not federal property. So you could just simply follow the procedures as designated by the governor instead of by the federal government. What that would mean is if the federal government made a proclamation that the state then didn't follow for state property, we wouldn't follow it either. But if the state followed the federal observance, then we would follow that as well. I would say in doing that, you are setting yourself up for kind of not remaining somewhat neutral in terms of how the observance is. And there will be times when the state will make a proclamation that you may or may not be supportive of, and then what do you do at that point? So again, this is before you for ongoing consideration in terms of adopting the procedure. I could certainly pass along any other questions, but basically this is at the discretion of the committee based on the feedback from our legal counsel.
Go ahead.
Do we need to stipulate in the policy that this applies to RWC flags only? Because I don't know I know there are flagpoles on mutual property. So do we need to add that to clarify that this doesn't apply to mutual?
Yeah, it's part of the subject line for the procedure, the very first line. It says display and protocol of American flags and California state flags on Rossmore Walnut Creek property.
Got it.
Go ahead.
Where do we have, I've been looking for state flags. And I haven't found them yet. I'm sure they're here somewhere. But I would just note that Governor Newsom did proclaim that from March 4th to 7th, all state flags would be flown at half-mast in honor of Reverend Jackson. And do we have a flagpole that's just state flags?
Just state flags? I don't believe so.
So, and I'm not suggesting that we have to have a state flagpole. I'm not suggesting that. But I'm just noting that because here's a situation where the state, our state did make a proclamation that wasn't a federal proclamation.
Yes, so our two flagpoles are single poles, so
Yeah.
we don't have an independent state pole.
And we don't fly the California flag under the US flag.
I don't believe so.
Okay, all right. Well, no, thank you.
I have a question, Jeff. Basically, under procedures, we would adhere to the United States Flag Code. Where is that written, and is it modified or changed, and is there more than one?
Where is the code written?
Yeah, who is the authority for the code?
The first bullet under one.
Yeah.
So that, you're stumping me a bit there.
What's that section?
Is that codex of rules?
Well, it's listed on your cover page.
Yeah, it's in the first section, I think, isn't it?
Right, under procedure.
That would be part of the US code.
It's at,
Listed at the beginning there.
yeah.
California policy practice flag flying, American flag and the United States flag, and then it has the code there, section 430-439. That's the one, right?
I believe so.
What is the authority for that code?
Yeah, that would be part of the US code. So it's already under the US government. Again, that pertains to federal property. So since we're private, we do not need to adhere to that. I think the main recommendation here is you want to try and take out anything that makes it subjective in terms of when or how.
Would you like a motion, Chair Hurt?
Sure.
So I would move that we recommend to the board the procedure P104 that's before us with the elimination in the purpose of this phrase, and in a manner that is neutral, respectful, and uniformly applied. It's the elimination of that language.
The whole sentence portion.
After the word state guidance.
Is there a second?
Wait, could you repeat that?
I'm recommending that we approve or recommend to the board the approval of procedure P104 with the elimination of the phrase in the purpose after state guidance, the phrase "and in a manner that is neutral, respectful, and uniformly applied."
Why do you want to remove that?
Wait a minute, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, is there discussion?
Yes.
Further questions or discussion?
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Under responsibility, where it says with applicable proclamations and guidance, why is that included?
Which section are you?
That's
on?
At the end,
At the very end.
responsibility.
Very end. Under responsibility, the last paragraph.
Responsibility, the general manager designee shall be responsible for implementing.
I'm not sure what the question, why that would be there. It's just so that it's noting that somebody is responsible for making sure we're adherence to the procedure. Which is to follow the proclamation.
I don't have a problem with that because it does put the responsibility for the person who orders the flag lowered to follow the current and existing procedures, the standards.
Okay, so it allows the general manager to make a comment about that and then.
It's just ensuring that somebody is responsible for following when that takes place and ensuring that it is in compliance with the procedure.
Any additional discussion? You had a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. I would like, Susan, can you explain why you want to eliminate this word?
I think the questions have to be limited to some, for a person to ask a question, isn't there a limitation on what kind of question can be?
It's a qualifying question.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me. At the last discussion, I had recommended that we remove the word neutral. And then upon suggestions from residents, I looked at all the words and I thought I thought it would be useful to remove all those words.
The question is, why would we not want the policy to be neutral and consistent?
No,
It has to be.
residents can only speak during the member
Oh,
forum.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize that she's a policy committee.
Okay, so we have a second.
You seconded, didn't you? Yeah. Are we ready for a vote? Can we have a?
Hurt,
Yes.
Hildred,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Maji,
Yes.
and unanimous consent, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, and now we need to continue the discussion of the policies related to facility use, clubs, and guest use.
So today we want to pick up the discussion of policies by focusing on policy 302, which is RWC approved organizations. And we're going to look at things, and what I want to do is go through the presentation and then the committee can decide to back up and figure out on which subject they want to talk about. But I want to talk about the policy subject or the title itself, identify a couple of the issues that are silent, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Non-resident club member limits, the ever controversial non-resident club member limits, exceptions to the policy, forming an organization, and open and drop-in events. And then we're also going to talk about definitions. Okay, so I think many people have been following this meeting. So this is the flow chart. And of course, the first one we want to talk about is RWC approved organizations, because there are a lot of questions and it kind of has tentacles into the other policies that are part of this body of work. So starting with the subject title, when you read through the policy, the requirements defined in this policy are adhered to a group of organizations that we refer to as clubs. They follow this club definition, they're in compliance, except for some of the things that have been either practices that have been going on, the membership number is getting a little out of alignment. For all intents and purposes, this really pertains to clubs. There are some other organizations that have formed that have been accepted to certain requirements, but are receiving privileges similar to clubs. And so these are issues that are silent. And the reason I wanted to put this parking lot, if you will, I think as we go through policies, we're going to come across practices which people will say, oh yeah, it's kind of an extension of that policy. But I would recommend that somehow in this process, we create better definition for that. So there are these groups that are not clubs, and they will tell you they're not clubs. And the Rossmore Fund is a really good example of that. And so I believe it's a much smaller board than the 20 people that are required to create a club. And not only do they have the ability to reserve with history, to do their big fundraiser, which serves all of Rossmore, they're allowed to do things with vendors that are not allowed to any other club. So we've kind of created this, and there was a comment that came from one of our speakers, like how do these kind of one-offs happen? I think we're really at that point, we need to define these and understand the criteria in case there are others that may want to apply, or if we want to say we're limited in doing these, but we have a few things that are like this. So then there are also groups that are sponsored by one of the RWC operating departments. Recreation, public safety, and counseling have different groups. These are some of the examples, like EPO, Neighbors for Safer Streets. And they also kind of operate like a club, but there are other exceptions too by nature of how they're formed. So the reason why I said maybe this title needs to change is because it's really not just, we say it's for RWC approved organizations, but we're not saying what it takes to approve those other formats of organizations or what the definition of them should be. So I think that's kind of something that could be captured. Okay. So then moving on. So there's the non-resident club member limit. So we do want to discuss this, and basically the way it's written, it needs to be 80% RWC membership, unless otherwise exempted from this rule. And so really for you all to discuss is when did this apply? Why does it matter? And I think we're looking through the lens. Mira, you said something really smart when I heard you talking about these things. We also need to figure out what we can administratively manage and kind of, you know, and if this doesn't matter, like for us to get these rosters, which also appears, oops, thought it was the next slide. But these are things that we need to make sure that we're asking for this information for a reason. There are some exceptions that may occur in different policies. This is the only exception which is overtly identified within this policy. And this one is for a club that would, in their officers, if you want to have someone that is not a member or resident, you need to have like permission to do that. You need to get that exception. And it tells you the process, but there's no criteria. And I don't know if that matters, but these are things to think about, because sometimes, because there are going to be certain, and maybe certain exceptions you need criteria, certain exceptions don't need them. But this is just something to keep in mind, because this one is simply a letter with the club's justification, but it doesn't have really a review process on it.
So quick question. I mean, do you feel like a list of criteria has to be inserted in the policy for that particular item, so that it's outlined what conditions might?
I think that could be administrative, but it's similar to, as we're looking for exceptions, for instance, I will say when a club is coming to us, like we need a sponsorship policy, that may be a little bit more meatier where you need to put criteria. Maybe this one you don't, but as you see exceptions, I'm just bringing them to your attention. because you may say, oh yeah, that makes sense just as it is. And maybe it doesn't need anything more than that. I don't want to make, I don't.
So we're gonna debate this.
Yeah, this is all for you to discuss. I'm just saying this is one exception, which has been explicitly highlighted when we have these odd exceptions which aren't defined anywhere and may require more criteria. This one has no criteria. So then forming an organization. So we're asking some questions about this because of the last speaker that was talking about like impacts to rooms. We do have impact to room. And so one of the things that we see is once a club becomes a club, they just want to meet and do lots of activities which don't seem to have anything connected to what their club was created to do. For instance, a club that's created around, I don't want to use the actual club, but let's say like something similar to, but not Tai Chi. But they want to have now a Mahjong.
Okay.
They want to have reservations for Mahjong. And then we have, multiple Mahjong groups, right? So we're finding that there are clubs that once established are trying to do these add-on activities. And so again, it becomes impactful to use of rooms.
Is this kind of like, so you got, I understand, a club starts and they got this plan on what they want to do and everything. Many clubs have these spin-off groups that are doing other things within that club.
Yeah.
Which, so the club has, it's let's just take a club that has, and then it's got like 5 or 6.
Right.
And these are not like just 4 people playing cards. These are considerable amount of people that are taking up another space here underneath this umbrella of this club. Is that what you're trying?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know we got a lot of that going on though in the clubs.
I will say for people listening, and the idea isn't to suddenly, shut down these groups, but it could be, if it was decided you want to keep things a little bit more, well, this is the interest of this club, give those groups an opportunity to form as a club. I mean, let's call them what they are. Because then that was getting into I will tell you, that was the people that we had the most difficulty reducing the numbers of rooms were these super clubs. And I'm just going to call them super clubs because they do that. They do kind of cast a much wider net. And I understand because you're in a club that's super active, you get to know each other and you want to do other common interests together. So I understand how it occurs. But do we have the capacity to allow, once you're a club, suddenly you have rights now for any activity that you want to do?
Now, do the smaller groups, the sub-clubs, do they have to go through an authorization process? So
Under that umbrella, that's the whole thing.
The umbrella gives them that.
Yeah.
They're not treated as a sponsored club or as even a club, recognized club.
So I can give you an example of one of the things that's happening. So right now there's, we have limitations on space, on the appropriate safe places now where we can do donation drives. And historically there've been, there's been a turnover in the recreation room reservations team. There's been a certain number of groups that have done that. Because of safety issues, because of the solar going up in Gateway, and we're looking at safe places to drive through events, we have a certain place where we can accommodate this. We've had like 4 different groups that have never done this now want to do this, and we've had to turn them down. A lot of it's because of scheduling. Also, it's not an activity they did before, and it was outside of what appears to be their core mission. Now I understand it's a group of people that have an interest in common. They want to do this other activity together. But we've had to reject it for a combination of space availability. But then it's asking the question, well, we're going to keep doing duplicate in multiple of activities when to become a club, it says that you can't duplicate activities. So what's happening is once they form as a club, they're duplicating all over the place. So it's the intention.
What about the sub-clubs in terms of the liability insurance and other rules? Is that independent of, or again, is it covered by the umbrella?
Well, they're club members of that club, and we don't recognize that there's no such term as a sub-club. There's no such term as a subgroup.
Subgroup, yeah. Okay.
So the clubs may term that, they may have certain terms within your different structures, but it's just a club member.
And the reason that these sub-clubs form is because?
I just think they like hanging with each other and they have other common
Why don't
interests.
they become a club?
Well, I think they morph. You got this club, let's say a club that's a fairly good sized club here. And their club is very social. That's all it does. It's all the club does. Let's get together and party. And they party. And then these people are partying over here, say, I'm interested in food. And I would like to get together with a bunch of food people. Now they create a group here and it spins off over here and it becomes a separate entity of that club. And it's all based around food, but it's under this club.
What is the advantage of being under the club?
Yeah, that's what I'm not saying advantage or disadvantage. I'm just saying this happens. And then you have this club and we have a bunch of people in this club go, I'm interested in this sport. So all the people in this club, they're still members of this club. They still do the functions of the big club, but now they spun off and they come over here. And now we got a sports club underneath this big club here. And we're booking rooms underneath all this big club, but they're using these different groups because of this club to use all these different things and I don't know how that affects, does it, and this is just a question, so they would have to book under the big club, right? And then how does that affect that club if it's trying to book so many rooms a month because we got five spin-off clubs that are.
It's the historic. So you have to do your history booking. And once that process is done, groups can come in and do one-offs through the year. And they're not guaranteed those dates the following year.
So what if
they can still have
is the historic still carried over from when we've started to really look at this? Is that the historic record that's been from the past? So
It's
if we
the
had a
prior
club
year.
with a bunch of, just the prior year,
Just
okay.
the prior year.
So
we roll over the prior year. So if you surrender a date, you may not get it back.
So say, like in Ted's example, that there was a book club formed in this huge social club.
Yeah.
And you turned that, Recreation, turned that down as a part of the larger club. If they formed their own club, they would still be using that room. So they would still request a room. So
Part of
how
the-
are you controlling?
Part of the challenge is that spin-off group for the book club may have 10 members.
Right.
And they can reserve a whole room. Whereas if
Under
there was
the
independent club,
So you're talking 20.
they would have to have the minimum, they would need
Yeah.
to meet all of the
Okay,
standards
I
as
didn't
a
get that,
club.
okay, I see.
Yeah, and I will say it's not uncommon for the big, like, so we have some, larger clubs that will, almost every of the larger social clubs will use the no fee, no service rooms for, mostly for games, like different types of table games, card games, whatever. So there is a big demand for these subgroups, but you're gonna find in some of those rooms, 4 people. 4 people at a time occupying the room for the whole day. So.
And the group could actually handle a larger group of people.
The room could.
Well, so, yeah, the first issue besides like the space, because it's basically it's a capacity. And once we know if we can better define it, we can talk about, well, this is what we can do, the impacts to capacity. And when we talk about 3 or 4, how you reserving the facilities, we can talk about that a little bit more precisely, like the impact of how it's managed now and how it could be if we're talking about we want to not have duplications and.
Because I think we have a number of clubs that have the spin-off clubs inside of them. And there's, and it just, in the beginning, it was just the one club. But over the course of the time of the club's been here for 20 years, let's just say. This club has got these extra little things that have happened and taken their life of their own with inside this club. Right.
Yeah.
And are these sub-clubs recognized? Are they known?
No.
They're just, okay, so they're.
One club is recognized.
People know about them, but they're not recognized. The main club makes the reservations. And then they may say, they would say to their members, the book group will move here or something like that. Clarifying question?
Clarifying question, why is this an issue when we just got a report to the KPI task force that you were able to fulfill 99% of the requests? Oh, I forget, it was like 200 or something. So why is it an issue if a club has people doing different things in different locations?
I don't think this has to do with the KPI. This is talking about getting better information on the clubs themselves and what are some of the issues that we have based, on that.
Could I just confirm in terms of what Janet's referring to is that we have since early January through the KPI task force been monitoring the number of requests that come in for rooms and how they're handled. And the good news is that practically all of those requests are met. Very few are turned down. That's during a period when all the requests are these one-offs. So we also have, the KPI task force is going to make some recommendations about this historic booking period where you really see the limitations, I think, in the historic booking period. That's just my experience. You would know that
I would
better.
say, and I would say the KPI was a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
So we've gone through the pushback, if you will, on why can't I have an extra, why can't I do this or that? So I think it looks a little bit different when it comes to the history booking every year.
Can I add too, we're not necessarily saying this is a good or a bad thing, or it's a problem. What we're trying to point out is that there is conflict within the current policy. So the current policy.
Oops, sorry about that.
Current policy says within 10 working days, receipt of the request to form a club, the recreation department will confirm if it's a duplication of an existing club. Right, so if the recreation department's tasked currently under the policy with trying to determine, is this a duplication of an existing club, but yet we allow clubs to duplicate existing clubs. Now, whether that's good or bad is up for you all to decide. We're just pointing out that there is discrepancy within the various policies right now that is hard for us to interpret when we go to either enforce policy or regulate it. So whatever direction you end up wanting to go is fine. We're just trying to point out that there's discrepancies right now.
I don't see how this group can look at these, okay, Chinese American Club, the Jewish group, the Lesbian Social Club, all these different groups have mahjong.
Janet, it's just
Janet,
clarifying
Why-
question.
So how would you determine, well, you can't have a mahjong game because that club has a mahjong game? How would you even begin to turn that into a policy where I just don't understand how you would change the policy.
The question is, if I get an application for another mahjong club, what we try to do is, right now, what we're trying to do is to say, you know what? There are 6 other groups, at least, that have mahjong. Maybe one of those clubs would be better for you to join. So that's a clear duplication. So we
So
just want to, yeah.
So we need clarification.
We need clarification.
Okay. Do you have any suggestions for clarification or
I'm
operations?
just raising the issues and you're gonna tell me, you folks can just keep doing what you're doing, or maybe we should work on it. All right.
So the good news for the small groups, the sub-clubs, is they don't have to go through the process of becoming a club.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Okay, so the next one, getting hotter, okay? All right. So, to become a club, it has this statement that the stated purpose and activities of the proposed organization have the potential to enrich and or benefit the community. So the question is, do we need to have a better definition of benefit to the community? Might we want to add things about types of activities that we want to restrict or prohibit. We do get challenges for things which we've been successful in rejecting applications for, that either appear to be safety issues, really require being led by licensed professionals. And again, we don't get in the business of managing clubs, so we do have to worry about exposure, to the community. But should we define any kind of risk factor in there?
Should it be benefit to the community or benefit to the members? I mean, I'm just tossing it out there. Is it?
Yeah, the fact that it relates to the community might not have anything to do with the
Yeah, because I can think of a lot of clubs that we have that are not, they're great for the members and socializing and getting them out of the house and doing, it's great, but
And that
it's
is the
not
second part.
necessarily.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's the second part, right? And so, in that.
Or could it be both /members /community, so it's good for either?
Well, but it goes to the second part of this statement. Because I think if you look, you have to look at it as the whole and then kind of get a little bit more micro. So then, can a group of residents that belong to an outside organization, form this friends of or form a chapter, so then they can then use Rossmore facilities, not just for their localized group, but invite the outside, because we have a variety, about a dozen groups that fall into either they're friends of some type of really wonderful charitable organization in the community, or alumni associations that'll have their alumni gatherings, but many times they will book one of our rooms for a class of 95. That wouldn't be old enough for you, 1995, right? To have their alumni gathering here, as long as one of their members have been attending, they make their own rules, so they can kind of transfer this benefit to them. There's, a faith-based group is the same thing. Actually, they actually exist outside. And then we also have a pending request from Rotary to really kind of open the door so they can combine with another Rotary, which would really make it a majority non-members. So this is kind of it's something to consider. And maybe that's an okay thing. Maybe it's really good to be able to have just a core group of people organizing an activity that invites members from outside the community. But I think it's one of those core issues, one of those core philosophies to try to define a little bit better, because it does impact who's coming in and out of the gates. And we really want to know what is accepted, what is the tolerance.
Are we, okay,
I don't know who's first.
just real
Go
quick.
ahead.
This, there's something about this issue, and I'm not trying to be judgmental on it, but I do feel like in some situations, they are utilizing whatever the friends group relationship with the outside organization to take advantage of the fees here that are not market rate fees.
And I would say that this category almost could be broken out and create a separate policy for that type of situation. Now, the variables may be too great for a policy, but we can look at that to see if they could all benefit from a more structured policy for that particular situation. Could be just private revenue.
I think it'll be very interesting to continue collecting the data about how many people are requesting space and what the turn down rate is. Because if it's not overly extensive, if it's not a problem, then the question of just redoing a policy may not have an impact. If people are being turned down because space is being overutilized because of this, that's one thing. But if we have, let's say, 5 turn downs in a year, I'm not sure that going through this process with the knowledge we have right now would be significant, as opposed to looking at a larger amount of data about turn downs.
This is a pretty big philosophical question in terms of who are the amenities primarily for? Who is funding the operation, the maintenance, the upkeep, the everything? And I think it's been articulated very well that there is definite benefit in having outside guests and so forth use those. There's a benefit to the community, there's a benefit in exposure of Rossmore to others. But then, on the other hand, are these really for residents who's funding them? So whether it's kind of the demand is important, I fully agree, but it's a real philosophical kind of question of how do you want to engage with the outside community?
Is there a difference in the cost to Rossmore for clubs who have outsiders coming in more than residents? Is there a difference in cost from the Rossmore point of view?
I would say that many of them tend to be, not all of them, but many of them tend to be our bigger events, which is just like a different focus of time. Okay. There is an impact to the gate. When you talk to them, sometimes they'll have to peak staff and do different things operationally at the gate, and we're certainly not capturing any revenue to offset like what that may be. I think they try to work well within a fluctuating demand. But there is an operational impact.
So there is some cost, some additional cost when non-residents are participating in activities. Okay.
Well, there's cost when anyone is, right?
Sure.
So that's why it's like we're just tracking like the numbers because we're curious ourselves and we're getting better data from the gate now.
So back to your original question about benefit to the community, I think that's your deciding.
Yeah.
Yep, you know.
I just have to mention that we've had a lot of discussion about parking, and here's a lot of non-residents parking at some of these events.
All right, so next one. Okay, so I highlighted this provision that's on the last page of policy 302. And this is really specific to things that happen at the sports and fitness facilities. So they define these open or drop-in events as periods when participation isn't limited to any particular club, but is available to all RWC members and guests. And these are not considered to be sponsored by any club or organization. As contrast, we do have clubs that are essentially having drop-in events. And those are the ones that'll provide these master lists at the gate. And anybody from that list may be able to come into the events. The specific attendees are really not known. And so we're asking, should we capture that type of event in here? If nothing else, again, it's a different, it could be a different process for the gate list. I will tell you, we would prefer, because we've had a couple of groups that have exceeded capacity per fire code for doing things like this. So it helps manage the safety of the functions at times. But should we review the policy to clarify whether clubs can sponsor events that function essentially as drop-in activities outside of fitness and sports facilities? We already know they can't do them there.
So you're talking about a club that might have just an extensive list of people who are non-residents.
Yes.
Who are allowed to come in at any time.
And so, again, and these are the things, it's like the rocks keep getting kicked over, right? So basically, and there are some groups that are very transparent. They seem to manage it and don't exceed the capacity. So I think there could be an administrative way we work with the clubs to say, we still need more of a specific list of who's coming in every day. But there are groups that have told us there's no way we can do this. They will have activities 3 to 4 times a week. And they have a list at the gate that's as big as what they submit as their member list, and anybody from that can come, and they've had occupancy issues on a fairly regular basis. And try as we may.
The list at the gate, when they put a list up, is only for the driver, right?
It should only be for the driver.
But I have 6 people in the car. But if the driver is the one who just, is the one who's identified and 6 people could come in?
Well, they should all be signed in.
What is their procedure
Yeah,
at the gate?
The procedure, as I know, is they check all the participants in the car, all the occupants of the car.
Oh, okay.
So everybody in the car has to be on the list.
So I just want to clarify. Clubs, I know some clubs do have lists of their their club members who aren't residents.
Right.
And that's a standing group, and that's shared with Securitas and updated regularly. So the lists you're talking about are lists of individuals who are not non-resident members,
Yes,
but are guests or
Yes.
friends or,
yes.
okay.
Just
And
guests.
so just to, yeah, I didn't really know that was allowed. So, and I'm not saying it isn't something that, I'm just.
And maybe that goes into, we're kind of silent, like and I guess we could be silent because the gate and the way we're dealing with it has been evolving.
I can tell you over history, this is kind of the secret little divide of, okay, so we're going to enact a policy probably back in 2012, 13, somewhere in there, to do with club formation. And we want to have at least 80% residents, maximum 20% non-residents. So what does the workaround become? They're not a non-resident member, but they're just a guest of.
I got you.
Well, we have a hard time controlling that because any resident can invite however many guests you want. There's no restrictions on saying who you can invite. So I'm inviting and they're part of it. We have no way of monitoring that. But what has then now happened is, let's say you're the train club, you have a weekly event and you have your members, you have your non-resident members, all legitimate, but you have 50 guests of, they're always on the gate list. And 2 of them may come one week, 10 may come the next week. We never really know who is off that list. So really, is there a distinction between them being a non-resident guest or a non-resident member? And does it matter? So that's kind of the question we're posing here is do we need to have a distinction there? Do we need to make sure it matters? Does it need to be uniform across all of the clubs and all of the amenities?
What are the potential negative effects of the non-resident guests from the Rossmore point of view?
A to Z.
I mean, so part of it is if a club doesn't know who they're expecting, and again, we've had this happen at least a handful of times in this year. They could exceed occupancy. They could be in a room smaller than what they reserved for. And so that has happened. The other thing is we do hear from certain guests that come. So the other thing is a guest is a guest. Even if you're, just so you know, when we get to definitions, even a club member that's a non-resident, technically they're a guest, which means they have to be with a resident at all times. And so we do have certain big volumes that come in and they kind of do the tour a little bit. So we've had that happen. You know, there are certain of the outdoor amenities where they're trying to have us help them figure out how do they prevent people that don't belong to the community from coming in and using the amenities. It's not like prolific. I'm just going by what's reported to us, but there is a concern. If we just open the gates and everybody could be, you know, sure.
So I need just clarification, because I read this, I didn't read it in this one, it's one of the other rules that were, you know, one of the other ones that are in there. And it caught my attention that a member, you can have guests or guests come in, but they have to stay with the member. So I'm going to a function at Event Center and I have a table for 8. And I am sitting at that table, my wife and I are sitting at that table, and we invited 6 other people who are guests coming in. But when I got there was for some reason, we are not sitting with them. We are off someplace else. Now these guests are all by themselves. Is that, I'm just getting, because you said.
Are you at the facility?
No, well, we're in somewhere inside the facility. We're in somewhere inside.
It doesn't mean you have to be latched to
You don't have to chaperone them, but you're responsible for them.
That's what you said, they must be with that member.
And for that purpose, by the way.
That event, whatever.
Like if you invite your guests to the fitness center, you have to be with them at the fitness center. It doesn't mean you have to be using the machine next to them, but you have to be at the fitness center and you're responsible for their actions.
So what if I invited 4 friends to play golf with me and then I didn't play golf? Can I do
You
that?
couldn't do that,
Yeah,
no.
we can't do that.
You have to be
Okay,
with,
so that's what I'm trying to
with
say. I
them
need
at the
the,
amendment.
Yeah.
how close do I have to be to them?
If you're responsible for that activity, you have to be with them for that
I
activity.
have to be in the activity
Yeah.
with them, somewhere.
Not the same.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
We're gonna watch you very.
I know.
Yeah. So you're
I'm
the
not, I
one.
was just looking for the, I'm not looking for a loophole. I'm looking for the definition
I
of
got
you
you.
have to be with the member.
But that comes back to the kind of that enforcement of policy. We're gonna put something in policy, but we have really no ability to manage that. So if you were to walk off the course on, hole 3 and your team continued on, we don't have any way of monitoring that.
Right. So if I had, say I was in a club of 100 and I wanted to, and all 100 of the club invited 150 other guests to come in at the event center, well, we don't have to sit with them. We just invited them to this party because we know them. And there's probably somebody I don't want to be with anyway, so I want to be with my friends from the club. And I'm going to be over here. We could have 150 people of this mix who have no vested interest in Rossmore and
That happens all the
could get
time.
crazy and do whatever they're going to do.
We typically don't get crazy, but we do have that mix all the time.
Okay.
And part of my concern is what you brought up is the occupancy, because if everybody shows up and it exceeds the allowable occupancy, that could be an issue. How is that handled? If the room is too full, or is it handled?
I mean, there are sometimes we don't have a place to relocate people and we have to talk to the club to figure out how they can manage what's there. Like, so we're the last people in, maybe they can, rotate them in or whatnot. But it never goes down easy. What we try to do, right? So what we try to do when they're really identifiable occurrences, try to work with them on plans to mitigate that. So, because mind you, like the clubs need to self-manage, right? So we can advise them on how to do that though, but usually it's like we can't tell, like we can't predict this is gonna happen. But when it does, then we'll work with the groups to try to talk to them so they understand, like this has happened in some of the studios, right? So like just let them understand, let's get you some pre-designed setups for when you do these different lecture series that come in, so you know the maximum capacity, that you know what's required by fire code. And just talk them through how are they managing RSVPs and whatnot. We do what we can to really help the groups provide that administrative coordination, which is always difficult because they're all volunteers. But for the most part, then it'll be good for a while, then you'll have another one which exceeds.
What I'm wondering, would it be possible to have an activity/event date-specific list for the gate? So that the club would not be able to invite more guests for that event at that time, and that the list at the gate would have to be that date, that event specific. Not just.
We actually provide them lists per activity.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what we need to change, right, because some of them, and again, it's one of the things that's difficult is as much as we try to put these processes in place so we can kind of help facilitate a consistent rollout, somebody knows somebody or does a workaround where it tells the gate it's something it isn't. And then when we start seeing the problems, that's when we realize at the gate.
Even under that scenario, the club could still give you a list of 200 names for every single week, even though they don't really know if it's gonna be 10 people showing up or 100 people showing up. Because there's no penalty for a no-show, and we can't track that, right?
Yeah.
So yes, we can enter in the data every single week of your list of guests, but we don't know if they're gonna show or not, or if they did show or they didn't. We're not at the event scanning people in, we're not scanning, it is more self-managed. So there's always kind of a way around.
What I was thinking of the occupancy limitations. If they knew they could, they had to say you can't have more than this many people on the list. It wouldn't exceed the room's capacity. I don't know if it's possible, but it'd be in one case that would make it very obvious to the club.
We can, I mean, but these are the things that it would be helpful if staff had something in policy for things like that.
Okay.
I'll just leave it at that.
So not, I don't want to belabor this, but just a quick question about it. So I've been involved with a club that's very diligent about making sure who we know who's coming and giving it to the gate in a particular time and all that.
Okay.
So are there multiple situations like this, or are these kind of one, I mean, you know?
No, it's multiple, it's
Oh,
multiples.
okay,
They're
all right,
multiples.
okay.
Is it typical?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not multiple, is it typical? Yeah.
It's enough that because we don't have an overt, let's do this.
Okay.
So how do you
Because
know?
there's no, and I will say there's no consequence for not complying with these administrative practices, unless it's a policy. You can't really do much except put the work in, which again, we don't mind doing that. We don't mind doing that, but it seems like it's the same conversation with the same groups and the same impact to resources.
So we still need to work on like 3 or 4 issues that we've talked about. You've pulled out of this.
Yeah, so
does staff have an idea of how to break those things out or redline those items, or is that gonna be our work going forward? Where are we?
So to help your committee work through it, we could do a preliminary red line draft.
Yeah.
Right.
But you know, keep in mind, this is operational, we'll take it from that snapshot. But there is kind of, you know, there's pros and cons, there's different ways to look at things and go. And you always want to keep enforcement, what is the purpose in mind? So we have something that has real meaning behind it that we can actually move forth.
And one thing I think is very useful as we work through this is, since you are aware when a room is overoccupied, can you periodically tell us how many events every year are where the space is overoccupied? Okay.
And then I was just gonna show, so the last slide, I just want to do this. So this is going to be a work in progress. We don't really need to review this today. Phil Prasek he's like a stellar model resident, by the way, and club member, and has just been really engaged in this process since we first started looking at room reservations. And so he forwarded a list of definitions after hearing a conversation that we really need definition as we go through this. So I had already started some, but what I'm gonna do is go through, as I go through the policy, and we start doing some red lines, like pull out things that require definition. And I think it'll also help, because between club member, resident, non-resident, we really need to figure out what those, we don't wanna reinvent definitions, right? We want to pull from where they're already defined elsewhere in policy and then clearly establish the definitions in this policy. But I think we're going to have to keep this ongoing through all the policies before we,
I think so,
you know, put them in any one of them.
Could I just ask one question? You created this great flow chart, which is very helpful, and I noticed today we haven't yet addressed one of your questions. Can a club invite a non-Rossmore entity to hold a fundraiser in the Rossmore facility with as few as one club member in attendance? And can we draft something that says no to that? I don't know, I mean, I
was kind of addressing that, because it goes under, there's all these different, because I want to say Leanna something I gave like a specific example. I said, well, how many clubs are doing that? And it's like, well, there might be 2 that are doing that, but there were 3 doing this and 4 doing this. And it kind of all goes under, which one was it? Is it this one? So kind of, I mean, we can do that, but it's kind of the same thing, like almost like a friends of, whether it's a couple of groups that are doing something from the outside, a club that's extending it to someone else. We have this odd transfer of club membership, and I think that's kind of what it is. It's a transfer of club membership as defined by the club, right? Because they want to do that as part of their activities. So I think if we define it and include some of those examples as included but not limited to, maybe that would be a way to do it.
Right, and if, in doing that, if you can help us understand better what the problem is that we're resolving.
Well, I think, you hit it. They're doing something which otherwise could be a private reservation.
Right.
But they get a club rate,
Yes.
so.
And it's also, I mean, that's one thing if it's a reservation, if it's a fundraiser too.
Yeah.
So the entity is providing a fundraiser and it may be a very beneficial cause, but still, again, they're using this low market rate, below market rate cost that we charge. And as we move through this process, at some point, I may suggest that we consider some kind of differentiated fee system that might allow for some of these things, yet in a way require that if we're doing that, we're at least getting additional revenue for that. That I've been thinking about it, I've talked about it for a long time, I think, Ann, so I
think we can pull it out.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments for next time?
Well, I think we could go on with this for a little while, but I think what we should do is just kind of, from the stuff we've covered today, come back with your, instead of looking at the whole elephant here, come back with what you got right now and have it
Just
looked
like kind
at.
of red
and
line
then
based on this
red line
discussion. and
based,
see
so
how
we
it
can
goes.
kind of
Okay.
at least cover
Yeah.
that stuff, and then we can step into the other ones that are related to that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It's easier to debate.
Yeah, when
you
we
have
have,
the red line?
when the first one is all
Okay.
squared away, it's like the rule 100, you know.
But philosophically, just so you know, I have no idea what you want to do with the 80%, so.
Well, we haven't even got to that one yet, have we?
No, but to me, this
talked
is
about
like,
it in
this is the
groups,
main
roasted.
one, and then everything comes off of this.
Yeah. No, it's in here. Philosophically, I don't know. Doesn't matter. I said, does it matter? Doesn't even matter. Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Well, we'll continue this discussion. Meantime, Ann, can you take us through the new website?
I can. All right. So I think just about everybody knows we have a couple of new websites coming. And in the process of doing that, I took a hard look at policy 603 and discovered that this is probably the most outdated policy that we have in the entire book. We have a website in here that I didn't even know existed, so it was time to take a real hard look at this one. So what I did was, first off, I got rid of the docs.rossmore.com, which was the website that I've been here 7 years. That did not exist when I got here, so that one's gone. And what I've done is I've tried to rewrite this policy to reflect the websites that we actually have. So just a quick overview, rossmore.com is becoming our marketing website. MyRossmore.com will be the website that is geared towards our residents. RossmoreTV.com is our Rossmore television. That is where our live stream and our on-demand programming is. And RossmoreNews.com is where the newspaper website is. And so I've restructured this entire policy. That's why it's incredibly redlined, so that it essentially defines what each one of those websites does. One of the biggest changes, one of the biggest additions that I put in here is that we are selling advertising, both on rossmore.com and on myrossmore.com. So there is a paragraph that addresses the revenue end for that. The one thing I do want to emphasize is that this is just the RWC policy. This does not deal with the privacy policy that will be on the website. We are reevaluating that privacy policy because there are going to be some changes. We are now dealing with NetSuite, which is a cloud-based system, is not like GenArc, which was a server-based. So we do need to reevaluate that, and that's going to the attorney to be reevaluated. So that will come later. This is strictly just the RWC policy. So are there any questions with the heavily revised policy?
Okay, first of all, I think this is really good.
I do too.
Thank you.
I think there needs to be a couple of headings to separate the sections.
Sure.
So above where your first paragraph of, or your second paragraph of rossmore.com plays a major role, maybe a heading just like description.
You bet.
And then down where you start numbering parts of the policy, maybe have a heading titled procedure.
Okay.
Or it doesn't have to be that, but something like that. Can I keep going?
You sure can.
Okay. On your new number 3. Okay, where you, the second sentence at the end, you add "and that make living in Rossmore easier, more convenient, and more enjoyable." Especially enjoyable is very subjective. So I would take that out.
Okay.
I would recommend ending the sentence at that inform the residents of activities and information about the community, period. And then if you want to add a separate sentence about convenience or something, I think that'd be fine.
Okay.
And then in number 4, you say who shall refer the matter to the president of Rossmore Walnut Creek. I would insert board. And in number 6, you say the designated senior manager's responsibilities include, and you don't have to number them, but I did. So they include include ensuring the websites are, in my notes, 1, ADA compliant, 2, secure, and 3, functioning within budget. You had different wording for that, but we want them to be on budget. So those are my little changes.
And I had a question on number 5 toward the end, where it gives the advertising, the Rossmore Communication, it says that advertising may be rejected by the designated senior manager if it is deemed illegal, in bad taste, or inimical to the interests of the community or residents of the community. Again, that sounds very subjective to me. Is that a standard statement?
It is, that's the lawyers doing.
Okay.
They wanted to give us sort of the ability to strike something down. That was done because we had a company come, this was for the Rossmore News a couple of years ago. There was nothing entirely implicitly illegal about what they were doing, but it was borderline Ponzi scheme, and it felt very, for the type of community that we were, it felt as if our residents could have been led down the wrong path.
Okay.
From a financial investment kind of a deal, and so I wanted the ability to say no.
Okay.
And so the lawyer wrote the terminology in a way that I could say no.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions or suggestions?
No, it's
Okay, so I will implement those and bring them back to the next meeting.
Great.
Thank you for finding the most updated policy.
You're welcome.
I knew we were kind of doing an audit anyway.
Do we need a vote on any of this, Anne?
No, because it'll need to come back. I wanted to bring a draft, and then the next one will be the one you'll actually vote on.
Well, is there any other business or anything that we need to discuss at this point? If not, the meeting is adjourned, and our next meeting will be April 13, 2026 at 1:30. So thank you very much.